The Great Battle on the Volga. Films made by 150 Army cameramen included in this picture. The cameramen who filmed Soviet troops in action were Bakar, Goldbrich, Ibragimov, Katzman, Malov, Arlyankin, Paselsky, Vikharev, Goldstein, Kazakov, Khrushchevsky, Mukhin, Ostrovsky, Sotin, and Shadronov, with acknowledgments to the State Film Archives. Scenario, Yuri Smirnitsky, directed by Maria Slavinskaya. Text by Alexei Surkov, music arranged by Makarov. Military advisor, Lieutenant General Platonov. Central Documentary Film Studio. Bow your head, friend. Bow down to this earth that was torn up by shells, mines, bombs. This earth that was once sown with deadly metal. This earth for which the Russian people gave their most cherished possession, their life. Mamayev Hill. A tornado of war, of blood and death crossed over this place. Bare your head, friend, when you step on this earth, which people all over the world now hold sacred. There is a handful of earth from here in the grim Antarctic today. History, the people's memory, recalls to us those unforgettable days. The summer of 1942 was a time of terrible anxiety. The firing line of the Soviet-German front extended hundreds of miles over Soviet soil from the Arctic Ocean down to the Black Sea. There was constant fighting in the key sectors. Battles raged on the Barents Sea. Soviet forces fought the enemy within the Arctic Circle amidst icy cliffs and snow-covered tundra. Heroic Leningrad, caught on the iron ring of enemy blockade, repulsed every attack. The troops of the Leningrad Front and Baltic sailors put up a valiant defense of the city. The front crossed through the ancient land of Novgorod. It was there, in the forests of Lake Ilmen, that the Soviet forces wore the enemy out in hard-fought battles. The German fascist troops had been routed at the gates of Moscow, but were still close to the city. Moscow's streets and squares were alerted. Soviet divisions to the west, covering the approaches to Moscow, were fighting continuously. Although the Red Army did not yet have superiority over the enemy, Soviet troops were consolidating the success won in the Battle of Moscow. Minsk and all of Belorussia was still occupied by the Nazis. Day and night, their heavy jackboots could be heard as the Nazis combed the streets. During the first year of the war, the enemy had captured a large part of the Soviet Ukraine. The wealth created by the Ukrainian people's hard work was plundered methodically and mercilessly. Trainloads of slave laborers, trainloads of food were sent to Germany. At the extreme southern sector of the front, the besieged hero city of Sebastopol, cut off from the rest of the country, kept on fighting. Among the city defenders were sailors of the Black Sea Fleet, known for their stalwartness and bravery in action. Months passed, but Sebastopol did not surrender. Aside from temporary successes, the first year of war brought the German fascist army severe defeats at Moscow, Rostov-on-the-Don, and Tikhvin. The blitzkrieg against the Soviet Union had collapsed. A long and drawn-out war was now inevitable. In the summer of 1942, the Hitler Command had concentrated shock groups east of Kharkov and Kursk and in the Donbass, with the aim of launching a major offensive, smashing the Soviet forces in the south and seizing the oil fields of the Caucasus and the rich farm regions of the Don, the Kuban, and the lower Volga. It was also the enemy's intention to cut off one of the key communication lines connecting the Soviet Union with her allies. Hitler's crack troops rushed into the offensive. The second front in Europe was still only a promise, so the German command was able to concentrate more than double the number of Soviet forces in the southwest sector. About 90 infantry, motorized, and tank divisions were thrown into the enemy offensive. The enemy pressed on towards the Volga and Stalingrad. Their goal was to split the Eastern Front and cut the Caucasus off from the central part of the country. 1/5 of the German infantry and close to 1/3 of the tank divisions were in action here. Over 1 million Hitlerite soldiers. The Fuhrer demanded that his soldiers fight on to victory in the East, and so they marched on and on to their doom. Fierce clashes barred the enemy's way. But the German offensive on the southwest sector continued. Fighting hard and stubbornly, the Soviet troops showed a fortitude that amazed the world, but the odds were too uneven. Again, as in 1941, the Soviet people tasted the bitterness of retreat. They withdrew to the east to save themselves from slavery and destruction. One of the greatest battles of the Second World War began on July 17, 1942. In the second half of July, the enemy pressed the Soviet troops back to the lesser bend of the River Don. A major battle was fought there in the steppes. The Soviet forces fought valiantly, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy. The Nazis called the road to the Volga the Death Road. And still, by intensifying the strength of their blows, the enemy reached the Don over a wide front. They crossed the river at many points. Division after division poured into the steppe country beyond the Don. Meantime, the German fascist command on the Caucasian sector sent units from 3 armies against the forces of the Southern Front. The enemy was in a hurry to capture the grain of the Kuban, and even more important, the Caucasian oil fields. Bomb blasts and the thunder of Nazi tanks shook the Kuban and Don steppes for hundreds of miles around. Soviet command made an all-out effort to check the advance of the Germans. At that time, the enemy still had the advantage in the air. But Soviet airmen were fearless in battle. They gave their troops good support from the air. Regardless of losses, the enemy pushed on. Stalingrad was in mortal danger. The local party committee called civilians and soldiers to the city's defense. Young and old helped build defenses. Day after day, more than 100,000 Stalingraders worked putting up fortifications on the front 400 kilometers long. Soldiers worked alongside the townspeople. Stalingrad's factories were turned into fortresses. The open house shops of the Krasny Oktyabr works smelted steel for the front. Tanks now rumbled out of the gates of the Stalingrad tractor works. German shock troops headed for the city from two sides. The 4th Tank Army had been turned back from the Caucasian sector and was to attack from the south, but it met fierce resistance from the Soviet forces. The 6th German Army struck from the west, and after a 3-day battle, effected a partial breakthrough to the Volga near the industrial settlement of Rynok. Fighting broke out at the immediate approaches to the city. Pressure was increased all along the front. Nazi forces had come right up to the city. They cut off the railway connecting Stalingrad with Moscow. The enemy already had streets and buildings under observation. Victory, the Nazis were certain, was already in their hands. But the Stalingrad Defense Committee and the Regional Party Committee were resolute in their determination to defend the city. The main role in the defense was played by troops led by General Yeremenko, commander of the front, and military council member Khrushchev. During those critical days, the people of Stalingrad joined civil defense battalions. A supreme effort was made to withstand the enemy onslaught. The enemy set August 23, 1942, as the date of a massive attack from the air to smash the city's defenses. Hundreds of planes with black crosses on their wings carried bomb loads to Stalingrad. But the front-line city was not taken by surprise. Vigilant watch was kept over the skies above the Volga. The anti-aircraft system was ready for action. Fighter pilots under General Fiukin made bold attacks on German bombers. And many a fascist plane failed to carry out its mission. And yet, the enemy triumphed. 2,000 bomb hits in one day. By the end of the day, the Hitlerites had lost 90 planes. German flyers boasted they had turned the city into a fiery hell. Valor almost beyond human conception was needed to continue fighting after such an air raid. It seemed that not a living soul could have remained amidst these desolate ruins, but that was a mistaken impression. The survivors left their city, now reduced to ruins by fire and metal, and retreated beyond the Volga. arms and ammunition arrived in the battle area. Red Army reinforcements approached the city along the Volga and on roads across the steppes. They had been sent to defend the Volga stronghold, and they took up positions on the front line. The air raid was the signal for a general and decisive attack by the Germans. They were in the city and certain of victory. Suddenly, the Soviet forces rose up from the ashes and rushed into a counterattack. The resistance grew stronger by the hour. Hitler had congratulated his generals too soon. Too soon had they made lithograph stones boasting that the city on the Volga had fallen. Too soon had they struck this medal in honor of the city's capture. The attention of the world press was focused on the battle on the Volga. In September, the troops of the Stalingrad and southeastern fronts struck a number of counter-blows that weakened the enemy. In the city itself, General Shumilov's 64th Army and General Chuikov's 62nd Army waged a heroic defense. To the north and south of Stalingrad, the armies led by Generals Kuznetsov, Kozlov, Malinovsky, Talbukhin, and Trufanov engaged in bitter fighting. While attacking the Volga stronghold, the Germans also continued their advance on the North Caucasus, whose grain and oil were such a great temptation. Here they managed to press back the Soviet forces and enter Krasnodar. The oil district of Maykop was likewise occupied. German fascist troops reached the Caucasian mountains with the goal of capturing the passes in the main Caucasian range. Special service units were sent into action against the German mountain troops. There were fierce clashes high up amidst cliffs and crevices. The enemy's way to the southern slopes of the mountains was barred. At Stalingrad, too, the German offensive slowed down. They broke into the city but did not have the strength to take it. Meantime, the Soviet forces continued to build up their defenses. Their raging, burning hatred of the enemy proved stronger than death. The events of these unforgettable days were filmed by Soviet cameramen at the front. The 62nd Army of the Stalingrad front, which had been squeezed right up to the Volga, fought under unbelievably hard conditions. The defense belt, 25 kilometers wide and from 2.5 kilometers down to only 200 meters in depth, was under fire by all types of enemy arms. The dugouts of Army headquarters on the steep bank of the Volga were like birds' nests in the sand. The military council of the Army, headed by General Chuikov, who was in command, guided the defense operations from here. The men of the 13th Guards Rifles Division, commanded by General Radimtsev, were outstanding among the city's defenders for their courage and valor. Stubborn fighting